I was telling her to leave. And, there were a lot of very volatile verbal fights that happened. But I think it was to the point where I was asking her to leave and she would not leave the apartment. And technically, um, she wasn't on the lease, but there are rights for people, I guess they call them squatting rights, that once somebody's in your home in my particular state, that they have a right, they have more rights than sometimes the person that has the lease. She wasn't leaving, and that's when I proceeded to call 911. I remember I was standing in the kitchen area and called 911, and she kind of restrained my arms, and then I hung up 911. I didn't reach it, speak with anybody. And the fact that she was like just even kind of restraining me was I was like, this is major. This is a major thing. And then I started like screaming, help, help, as loudly as I could. And then I think she became startled that I was getting loud. And then I opened my apartment door and I continued to yell, help, help. And she, stayed in the apartment. Obviously, she didn't want to call attention to herself. And that's when I kind of just sat on the front stairs of the apartment and took deep breaths and just really tried to collect my thoughts. Along the way, I mean, I was planning some kind of escape from my own apartment, ironically, that I lost. But yeah.
I'm Donna Andersen, and this is True Lovefraud Stories. Sociopaths are toxic and dangerous. Emma, who is a social worker, knew this on a professional level. In fact, during her training, she realized that her first boyfriend from high school was a textbook case. But Emma never experienced just how destructive female sociopaths can be until she became involved with Taylor. They met online, and the relationship was fairly short, but it was long enough for Emma to lose almost everything she owned, along with her sense of self. Now, Emma is sharing her story from both a personal and a mental health perspective to raise awareness of female sociopaths. All names are changed.
I really appreciate everybody before, this interview, just making themselves vulnerable and sharing things that, and yourself obviously included, that we are shamed for, be quote unquote being in these relationships, not leaving these relationships. I, very much appreciate others having the strength, for me to have the strength to share.
Emma grew up in a rural area of an eastern state and later moved to a big city for college and graduate school. When she was young, Emma was drawn to music. She played piano, drums, guitar, and saxophone, and loved to sing. She played in a band with her first boyfriend, whom she met in 9th grade. This kid had already engaged in terroristic behavior in high school, although as a teenager, Emma didn't understand what it meant.
He was stalking a student in another grade by which he would put notes in her locker saying he was going to kill her, anonymously, of course, because he didn't want to get caught. He would draw demonic pictures, very violent. I've never seen them, but obviously very inappropriate, disturbing pictures. Put it in her locker. I'm sure a lot of other inappropriate types of things. And this went on for a while, and nobody knew who this person was. I wasn't aware of it. He, never shared that with me. And this girl was completely traumatized.
School administrators figured out a way to catch the culprit. They put an alarm on the girl's locker, and eventually he was caught. Emma believes he should have been expelled, but that's not what happened.
He got basically a slap on the wrist and was told that he had ADHD and needed to go on medication, which is completely wrong. That behavior is not ADHD, clearly. But here I am, I'm like 14 years old. I hadn't started dating him yet. I just knew about what had happened, and he, was very, very likable, very charming, very good-looking guy.
When Emma talked to him, the kid expressed remorse for his actions. He also admitted that he tortured animals, again appearing distraught by his own behavior.
He put on the waterworks. He would cry and say, "I can't believe I did that. That was so wrong," and I believed him. And he also had told me about fire setting, that he set like an entire field on fire on one occasion. And the fire company had to come out, and these are all very telltale signs. These are kind of like those, textbook signs. And yet, again, my teenage 16-year-old self was thinking, okay, this guy is so sensitive. He cries about it. We have so much in common. But I will say, this brings into the sexual aspect of what is often talked about with this type of person. I mean, we had a phenomenal sexual chemistry, which kept us tied together for many, many years.
Her high school boyfriend was Emma's first sexual partner, and she described the experience as explosive. Still, he didn't treat her well. He was dismissive, callous, and probably cheating on her.
He just didn't give a damn about anything. His attitude was so apathetic. And I used to think, oh, this is a guy that, he just doesn't care, and it's so cool. Like, he doesn't care what people think. He doesn't, it was very unique in that regard. And now I realize that, no, he didn't care. He didn't care about anyone or anything, really.
When Emma went away for college, she pursued a degree in social work. As she learned about psychology and personality disorders, she began to understand that her high school boyfriend was likely a sociopath or a psychopath.
At that point, I really did realize that he was very toxic, and that I needed to cut ties, and I did that.
Even while she was dating her first boyfriend and was monogamous with him, Emma realized that she was also interested in women.
I'm bisexual, so I came out in high school. I had a lot of support from my mom. Unfortunately, she passed, but she was always very open-minded, cool, came from like an artsy family. So my first experience of like telling my mom, she acted like, okay, I mean, I think those were her exact words. We were having lunch and she said, okay.
Emma's friends in school were also supportive. All of this made ending her involvement with her boyfriend easier because she potentially wanted to date women as well. Over the years, she did. Unfortunately, several of them were narcissistic.
I met these women online as well. Um, and, after I realized who I was dealing with, what I was dealing with, obviously I got out of the relationship, but certainly it has just a very painful impact. But I took a lot of time out, sometimes years before I would attempt to date again. And, being in therapy myself and really trying to work through what was it that was, kind of, um, and I certainly don't want to blame myself, but what qualities, and they're often positive qualities that we have, but it was brought to my attention by my therapist that I, was an empath. Um, I didn't really know what that was. And then when I did some research and things, it kind of made more sense. And then, with my training in social work, I've just always really looked for the positives in people and really am very forgiving. Now I've realized, that's not always maybe the best. Forgiveness is different to different people, but my definition is kind of giving someone a clean slate, and I realize some people just don't deserve that.
If you're wondering if someone in your life is a narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath, and you need advice on escape and recovery, talk to Donna. Donna Andersen, author of lovefraud.com and host of True Lovefraud Stories, offers personal consultations. Since she founded Love Fraud in 2005, Donna has collected more than 10,000 cases. So she's probably heard a story like yours before. You're certainly not alone. Donna is also a certified Reiki master. Reiki is a healing approach for stress reduction and relaxation. Donna combines this with her deep emotional release technique to help you let go of the pain of your experience. Book your session today at lovefraud.com/talk to Donna.
At one point, Emma dated a woman who was clinically diagnosed with borderline personality disorder.
I would say she didn't have the malicious intent, I believe, that narcissistic individuals often do, in terms of making one feel much less than them, the cheating that they typically do, um, the grandiosity, um, just that I'm always better at everything and you're just so lucky to be with me kind of mentality. But she didn't possess that. It was just more of like this erratic behavior, self-injury kind of stuff, very traumatic. But I I don't think she was as malicious per se as the people with narcissism.
Then came Taylor. Emma now believes Taylor has antisocial personality disorder. They met 2 years ago, and of all Emma's relationships, This was the most damaging.
The scary quality to it, the menacing quality to it, the complete left field, like bizarre reality show it was. And I'm in no way saying a relationship with a narcissist is a walk in the park by any means. Avoid those people. There's so much great information out there about what to look for. But in terms of my personal experience of dating both narcissists and sociopaths, sociopath is so much worse.
Emma met Taylor on a dating app in the spring of 2024. At the time, Emma was in her late 40s and Taylor was in her late 20s.
I never have ever dated anyone that far apart in age, and I've never thought it was a good idea. I just feel like there's too many developmental differences. And yet she was able to convince me that this was a match made in heaven, that she was looking for, an age gap relationship, that they were very common now in the LGBTQ community. And she's kind of more knowledgeable about trends given her age, I guess. And I thought, okay, well, this is more of an acceptable norm. And yet something inherently did not sit right with me about an age difference like that. And so I really feel like that's just in and of itself was my first, the first example of me going against my own moral compass, just in, entertaining that I would be potentially dating someone 20 years younger than me.
Taylor, however, worked hard to win Emma over.
She pursued me relentlessly. I was very hesitant regarding the age, and she somehow assured me, comforted me that was not a factor, that she was well beyond her years, very mature, and she came through as very emotionally intelligent, very engaging, very sensitive, very emotionally attuned.
So they talked. Emma shared with Taylor that she had recently lost her mother. She and her mom were close, but Emma had no contact with the rest of her immediate family. Her loss was difficult, life-changing, and a huge vulnerability.
I think that was the biggest vulnerability that she tapped into immediately, because I had mentioned something about having a dream about my mom coming through, talking to me in my dream. It was a very beautiful dream, and she just seemed so supportive and wanting to hear about this and giving me that space, and really seemed invested in, even if it wasn't going to go anywhere, listening and caring about my loss.
But while listening intently to Emma, Taylor shared little about herself. She said she lived in New England, 5.5 hours away. She had roommates, and that's about all she said. Instead, Taylor messaged Emma persistently. She soon asked for Emma's phone number. Emma gave it to her.
Once I did that, the texting, it just seemed nonstop. The contact was so intense. Clearly, it was a part of a love bombing strategy, but it also did annoy me. a lot because I have typically been an independent person. I have, my own hobbies, my own interests, and I am very introverted, and I like to spend time alone and reflect without any distraction, and I don't need people around me all the time. Um, and so it was a lot. However, I was also, I'm not going to lie in that it really was an ego boost. I hadn't dated in 4 years. I'm like, wow, this person is so interested in me. And, really taking an interest in my grief and in my emotional well-being.
Taylor did say that she had an anxious attachment style and always worried about being abandoned.
And I sort of took that as, okay, I need to be supportive. She, is anxiously attached. She's going to probably need extra reassurance that I'm not, just going to drop her. It started to feel a lot closer than it ever what really was in reality. But it was, heading toward that forced intimacy kind of, the illusion of emotional connection, the illusion of all of this emotional intimacy very, very quickly. I mean, before, I even met her. And I value depth and connection and emotional intimacy probably above all else in a relationship. And I'm sure she picked up on that immediately and kind of fed me what she thought I wanted. And it was so believable. And I work in mental health. I'm not, I certainly have blind spots in my personal life, as we all do, but you know, I I liked to think I would have detected something like that, but I certainly didn't.
Still, the age difference was troubling, and Emma tried to cut off contact with Taylor 2 or 3 times before they even met. Emma's good friend also expressed concern.
She really encouraged me to kind of move away from that particular Taylor, from this particular person. And yet, there was something so compelling about our quote unquote connection to me that I proceeded. And in listening to your content, I think you did use a statistic that something like 70% of people are either warned by others or have a gut feeling that this individual is, toxic in some way, or there's something really off, and still proceed. And that it was very much me.
So Emma continued. She did want to meet in person sooner rather than later, reasoning that if they weren't attracted to each other, there was no point wasting time with more phone calls. In May, Taylor took the initiative for them to get together. She booked a bed and breakfast midway between their locations. Emma felt this was way too intimate and backed out of their plans. Taylor went to the bed and breakfast anyway with her roommate.
But her roommate, according to Taylor, abandoned her there and left her there and took off back to New England. I kind of doubt that is the true story. I have no idea. And so I came in and sort of rescued her. I drove all the way from, my city to it was like a 3-hour drive, and I picked her up These are things I never would typically do. And essentially, we went back to my apartment. That judgment was a definite lapse in judgment to pick up essentially almost a stranger and have them come back to, you know, my personal living space. And that was kind of my first introduction to her.
On that first night, they were intimate. For Emma, the sexual connection was phenomenal.
Even though it was very premature, you know, in my mind, it was like this really, really deeply emotionally connected experience that, you know, and she had been alluding to how, I don't think she used the word soulmate yet. She definitely went there, but, and I'm just thinking, wow, you know, this is just so powerful.
Taylor stayed for 5 days. Then her roommate drove from New England to pick her up, a 10-hour round trip. Emma was dumbfounded and a little concerned that Taylor could convince people to go to such lengths for her. When Taylor got home, she called and texted Emma constantly.
I think she wanted to do a lot of video chatting, and I just didn't want to. But you know, certainly phone calls and texting and things. And she's like, "I miss you so much. I miss you so much. It's you know, making me physically ill."
The next month, June, Taylor took a bus to see Emma.
And that time she stayed for a week, kind of a very similar, you know, story in that the sexual component was just amazing, and she was very romantic in ways, like, you know, simple things, picking wildflowers and giving them to me.
Taylor visited again in July and stayed for another week. But this time, when she returned home, she announced that she was moving to Emma's city.
And I thought, what? And I asked her, and she said, yeah, I want to be, I'm studying psychology online. I want to apply to a university there for psychology, and I have a job lined up, and I made arrangements to rent a room from someone.
Taylor was arriving within a matter of days. Emma was flabbergasted.
And I said, promise me that you're not moving here just for me, that you're not making all these drastic changes just to be near me. And she said, absolutely not. I want to experience a different environment. I'm going to apply to college.
Emma wanted to believe Taylor, but she was hesitant. Again, her friend urged caution.
A good friend of mine was like, Emma, that's stalking almost. And I could not wrap my brain around that was like stalking behavior. And so Taylor moved to my city.
Taylor lived in a rented room, but it was in a rough neighborhood, and her job collapsed immediately. Emma worried about Taylor. She worried about how she was going to pay for her room and how she was going to navigate her sketchy neighborhood.
After we were intimate, one day, I unfortunately impulsively said, well, why don't you just move in here?
Emma's home life was upended. Now she is sure that Taylor's plan all along was to move in. At the same time, Emma was having difficulty with her job. She was working in a clinic providing therapy to children and families, but was having a hard time getting the paperwork done.
And I was struggling greatly there. And I was, over time, getting to know Taylor, was expressing kind of burnout with social work. I mean, it's such an emotionally intense job. And then in addition to that, Taylor was taking up so much of my mental energy and distracting me that I resigned from that job in the same month that she moved in, without another job available to me at the time, which was quite quite a mistake on my part. But in context, I'm going to give myself a lot of compassion, because I had just lost my mom, and this person was really working me, and I think was planting a lot of seeds to leave my job. And so Taylor was saying, this is where I'm going to step up. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to take care of things for now, while you take a break, because you've been doing this kind of work for so long, and you're going through, a lot of things. And unfortunately, I did believe her. I'm like, this person has my back.
Although as a social worker, Emma never made a lot of money, she did have emergency savings. She thought she could take some time off to grieve her mother.
My absolute favorite thing about my mom was that she was one, if not the best listeners I've ever met in my life. My mom was just so easy to talk to. She was so easy to talk to. She was the greatest confidant I've had probably to date. And Taylor mirrored that, just A plus. I was just like, wow, I found this person that has that same beautiful ability to, that it was so comfortable, and so easy to talk to her.
As Emma talked, Taylor started disclosing more about her own life. She said she suffered an abusive childhood, marred by poverty and neglect.
She describes some horrific things that really tapped into my empathy, tapped into my wanting to be supportive, wanting to be the best girlfriend I could be, wanting to be, what she needed emotionally and maybe never had, and so, and then alongside of that, one day she tells me she's married.
Taylor was married to a woman in Ireland. She said they weren't in touch at all, but because they were in different countries, a divorce was logistically difficult. Emma again felt like she was going against her moral compass by being involved with someone who was married. But at the same time, she felt that they were so right for each other. Emma chalked Taylor's impulsive marriage up to immaturity. Then Taylor revealed that she had also lived with a woman in Canada and had proposed to her.
And I thought, wow, like this is not good. Like this is becoming a pattern.
And then Taylor proposed to Emma.
I explained to her that I wasn't looking to get married anytime soon. That that's just not something I was interested in, and she was okay with that. I mean, but she increasingly began to really push that goal of wanting us to get married. And I think over the course of our relationship, she attempted She asked me, gosh, I would say 3 or 4 times.
They continued living together, but for Emma, as time went on, the situation deteriorated. Taylor was moving everything in the apartment, as if the place were hers. She was disorganized and would not clean up after herself. And she was controlling.
Things really started to take a turn for the worse the longer we lived together, because I was running out of money, and I was paying the rent, I was paying the utilities, I was paying pretty much everything. I was driving us everywhere. She doesn't drive. She doesn't have a driver's license. She doesn't. So I felt like her chauffeur. And the stress of, as I'm trying to apply for jobs, but also how demanding she was emotionally, and demanding of my time, and controlling of who I spent time with, where I would go. I basically kind of gave up and just invested damn near all of my energy into her.
Emma's good friend became increasingly concerned. She was also angry that Emma wasn't making time to see her or even talk on the phone. Taylor, for her part, was jealous because she knew that Emma's friend was also her ex.
We had dated 15 years ago. So this wasn't a newly ended relationship. This wasn't someone that I had just broken up with, or, this was 15 years ago. And we had also fostered a child together. And so we had, and he still remains in our lives. So we often spend time with him and keep up with his life. And he's had such a rewarding, he's doing so well. And it's just a beautiful what became of that situation. But I could tell Taylor was completely threatened by all of that, did not want me communicating with this person whatsoever. And this person was really the one person, and ultimately was my greatest ally in getting me out of the relationship. Or I wouldn't actually call it a relationship. I think it's more of a scam.
Taylor did get a part-time job in a thrift store, and Emma was proud of her. Her girlfriend was actually holding up her end of the deal. Maybe they would be able to get things together financially. But the job was short-lived. The problem, according to Emma, was that Taylor could not work with the other employees.
I used to think it was generalized anxiety disorder, that she just was very shy. But now I truly think it relates to her antisocial personality, that she just didn't care about other people. She didn't like to be told what to do. She didn't like having a supervisor. We all get frustrated, in our workplaces with, supervisors, but this was on a totally different level. This was like, I'm above all of this, like this, and I don't care about people, and I don't want to be around them,
By the new year, life was truly bad. Emma tried numerous times to break up with Taylor.
I think I flat out said, "You used me for a place to live. You need to make arrangements." And I wasn't, I know enough that you don't confront people like this in an antagonistic way. So I said it, in the nicest possible way I could, but I was firm. I kind of put that out there fairly early on, but later, it was just becoming so unbearable. And that's when she started cutting herself with a razor blade. She would go into the bathroom and take the razor blade out of the razor, and doing these cuts that weren't very deep on her thighs, and then showing me. And of course I felt so horrible and guilty, and wanting to help her, help herself, that she obviously wouldn't harm herself. And it was very, very jarring. But then it progressed to, I'm gonna take all the pills in the bathroom. I'm gonna, take all the anything I can find. Anytime I mentioned wanting to break up.
How did Emma respond?
I took everything that she could possibly harm herself with, and I locked it in the utility closet that she had no access to, and she didn't have the key. I said she needed to go inpatient to a psychiatric hospital. And I said, if you don't do that, I am going to break up with you. All the pills, all the sharps were away from her at that point. And she agreed. And so one day I drove her to a psychiatric facility in the suburbs.
Taylor met with the crisis evaluators, but convinced them that she did not need to be hospitalized. She did agree to an outpatient program 5 days a week, where she was seen by a doctor and participated in group therapy.
She did it for a little while. I drove her there and back every day. It was like an hour away. So it was like becoming my full-time job to take care of her, it felt like, which was impeding greatly on my own mental health, but also, my grief with my mom and my ability to find another job. This is a job in and of itself, to say the least.
Taylor quit the program before her treatment was finished. She claimed that one of the counselors was creepy and made her uncomfortable. By this time, Emma was out of money and facing eviction.
I lost the apartment mid-April and had no place to live, and had a girlfriend that was kind of unhinged. And her idea was to live in my car, and I was very opposed to that. I had discussed this with my friend, that I was able to live with her, but I would have to cut ties with Taylor completely. And I was concerned that Taylor would retaliate against my friend in a violent way. Along the way, Taylor did display some violence.
It wasn't extreme violence, but it was definitely violence.
For example, she broke my TV. It wasn't as though she picked it up and threw it, but she knocked it over and just, but broke my TV. She would, on a couple of occasions, just threw my dishes or a cup or something. She, On one occasion, I wanted to leave the apartment. I wanted to get away. And she like kind of restrained me from doing that. And I called 911. She kind of grabbed the phone out of my hand, and I ran down the hall of the apartment and I said, "Help, help." And no one came out of their apartment. And I just ran outside, and I sat on the front stair of the apartment building and just attempted to collect myself. I mean, it was extremely traumatic. On one other occasion, I called a domestic violence hotline, literally while she was in the apartment, and I had like an hour conversation with someone, and she just kind of like creepily stood there listening to the conversation. And so in context, so all those experiences led me to believe that my friend could be in danger if Taylor knew that I was moving in with my friend.
Emma and Taylor had to leave the apartment. They were homeless, which was dangerous in a big city. Emma suggested that they move into a homeless encampment outside of the city. Emma sold or gave away almost all her possessions. They got a tent. This was during the warmer months, so Emma's thought was that they could stay there until they found some work.
And I was just so disoriented. I think at that point I was so no longer, I mean, I was in reality, but I was so disconnected from myself. My judgment was so off. My perceptions were so off. It was just such a just all utter chaos. Meeting this woman, that I found myself somehow thinking I was going to be in a tent, although the tent flooded, and I lost a lot of my possessions.
After the tent flooded, Emma was angry. With no place to go, they did, briefly, live in her car in a Walmart parking lot.
Her, me, and my dog. I have a tiny dog, but it was awful, and obviously not sustainable.
They lived in the car for a week. By this point, Emma had had enough.
And then I was just like, I can't sleep. I can't function like this. It was getting warmer. My dog was panting in the car. I mean, obviously I would run the AC and take her out for walks, but it just was, just no. And that's when I left.
Emma finally went to her friend's house. Taylor looked online and found a Facebook group that was helping homeless people. Someone was willing to let her stay in their garage.
Taylor moved up to this person's garage and essentially, dumped me.
Taylor dumped Emma?
Yeah. She was like, "You're living with your ex," and yes, and it was surreal.
Emma blocked Taylor on her phone and on social media, but she was in contact via email. Soon in their correspondence, Taylor told Emma that she had moved out of state.
From what it sounded like, she was exploiting someone, like a extended family member that had a disability, and trying to get money as her caretaker or something of that sort. And then also that she had met someone new, and that this person was the love of her life and was everything that I was not. And that basically I was a piece of her. Last email to me literally ended with, you're a piece of shit.
How did Emma feel about being so rudely discarded?
I've been discarded by narcissists, and I have to say that it's a familiar territory. So I know that it takes a little bit of time. It does take time, but this has a different quality to it for some reason. It has a just utterly worth, like, feeling like I was just a, you know, pick me up, and you may as well pick me up and just put me out in the dumpster. Um, just so feeling so used, so utterly used, so scammed. And for what? Like, I guess it was the housing and sex. And I think she was bored because, she did have what seemed like a stable living situation before me, although who knows where the lies were and where the lies weren't. Anything could have been a lie, but I kind of do think she just did it because she was bored. And she ended up living in a garage.
In retrospect, why was Emma vulnerable to Taylor, even though so much about the involvement went against her moral compass?
I think my acute vulnerability, meaning what was happening right at the time of, like, meeting her, definitely was the death of my mom. Hands down. My mom's death, my grief, that major loss. This is 5 months out. I'm still almost in shock that my mom's gone. I haven't even gone through the process of, grief. And that's not a linear process, and that doesn't just go away. I'm always going to grieve my mom, but um that was a major vulnerability. But also, I have a history of abuse, dating back to being a child. I was adopted, which kind of always made me feel um, a little bit like an outsider, um, and that I didn't belong. Um, and also, being an empath, being someone that relates to people through empathy first and foremost. I still think about her with empathy sometimes, and I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that, as long as I'm not, re-engaging with her. I would like to arrive at a place where I can perhaps have some compassion. I feel overwhelming anger and disgust currently, but those are all pretty normal feelings. But yeah, those would have been my vulnerabilities. But number one would have definitely been my mom. And in retrospect, I should have given myself more time before I was looking to date.
Where is Emma in her recovery now?
Well, I'm, living with my friend that was my greatest ally throughout it all, and kind of picking up the pieces from here, um, exploring social work opportunities. I've, been working with seniors. I'm really doing kind of a not kind of, a kind of a post-mortem on the whole relationship. Like, what went wrong? Like, what, and and really educating myself on sociopathy through your channel, through other online resources. And then I think most importantly, it's just kind of like getting to know myself again, because I completely lost myself in it all. You know, I abandoned myself. I mean, I was manipulated and coerced and controlled and lied to and, gaslit and all those terms. But ultimately I did abandon myself, and I don't want to do that again. It's so devastating to break your own heart. It hurts more than anything anybody else can say about heartbreak. I think in my experience, it's just like, wow, like what happened there? What happened to you, Emma? Where did you go? Like, and I mean, I experience periods where I hope Taylor gets her karma. I hope some kind of karmic force. But then I realized, and I did hear this online as well, like, I think the karma often is just that she has to be her, that she has to be in her skin, and she has to be that empty vessel, she, like, the opposite of love is indifference. And when you say love fraud, which is just exactly what this is, that's indifference, not caring, is the opposite of love. And that's exactly what these people represent and embody, is indifference. And that's the opposite of love. And I am hopeful that I will meet someone that actually can love and actually can give genuinely. But that takes time when you've experienced things like something like this. Certainly not going to rush myself in any way.
I'm Donna Andersen, and this is True Lovefraud Stories. Even as a social worker, with all she knew about psychology, mental health, and personality disorders, Emma was blindsided by the manipulative and exploitative behavior of a female sociopath. That's why she shared her story, to raise awareness of the women living among us who can appear to be sensitive and caring, but who in reality are dangerous. In the next episode of True Lovefraud Stories, I'll interview an expert who will talk more about female sociopaths. How are they different from male sociopaths? What are the warning signs that you've encountered one? Be sure to listen. So, looking back, how would you say that your training as a social worker influenced your perception of Taylor and her behavior?
It was an emotional ping pong of, we talk about cognitive dissonance, but of going back and forth. She can't possibly be a sociopath, Emma. I'm telling myself, she can't possibly be a sociopath, to other days being like, this woman is a sociopath and you should be fucking scared. You should be scared. these people are dangerous. It was a ping pong in my brain of going back and forth. But then I would say, oh, but she's so emotionally attuned to me. And um, she doesn't, she's not callous. I never really saw her lose her temper other than the TV. And she was she looked very stoic when she did it. I mean, when we would get into verbal altercations, she would show a little bit more emotion, but she really wasn't emotionally volatile. So that really kind of led me to think that she wasn't a sociopath. But, deep down, I think I knew enough about the criteria on an intellectual level. I knew, so I certainly knew who these people were, but, you know, clinically, right? But not on a date.
So, how did her behavior compare with your first boyfriend? And were you making that comparison of their behavior?
Yeah. Yeah, that was part of it too. I think I sort of was like, well, he is threatening to kill people and tormenting people. And I mean, he was very parasitic too. I mean, I paid for everything we did with him. So there was that commonality between the two. But um, you know, he wasn't emotionally attuned, emotionally available like she seemed to be. Um, she was great with my dog. And that's a stereotype, right? That we think, oh, these people are all going to harm animals. Absolutely not. Um, that doesn't apply to everybody. I mean, she was great with my dog. In fact, my dog would obey her sometimes in ways that my dog wouldn't obey me, and things. So it was very, very perplexing. And the comparison between the two, I really do feel that there's a lot more that we can learn about women sociopaths, about sociopathy in general, but about women. And I think their ground game is seduction. She was a master seducer, and you know, she's seducing someone right now. I mean, she's from the last she told me she had met someone so great, and the bullshit that they say, but the seduction with a woman sociopath, I think, is just so powerful. They do it masterfully, in my opinion, and in my experience.
True Lovefraud Stories is produced by lovefraud.com. For more information about this story, other great stories, or if you'd like to share your story, visit podcasts.lovefraud.com. Engineering is by Terry Kelly. To learn how to recognize and recover from everyday sociopaths, visit lovefraud.com. You'll find articles, books, and webinars. You can also make an appointment with me, Donna Andersen. I offer advice for dealing with a disordered individual and EFT tapping and Reiki to help in your recovery. Book your session today at lovefraud.com/talk to Donna. Also, I invite you to my Love Fraud Live YouTube show. I talk about how to spot, escape, and recover from sociopaths. And then I answer your questions. It streams live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I look forward to seeing you there.